This is the 1937 Ohio River flooding by Mackenzie, Chorzelewski, and Blake Heilig. This image on the right depicts a snapshot from the flood in Maysville, Kentucky, and Aberdeen, Ohio, January 26 of 1937. The weather patterns that caused this flooding was that there was an unusually warm winter between 1936 and 1937, with an unusual period of very heavy rainfall in January and February of 1937, where it rained for 19 consecutive days. Flooding was and is still very typical in the spring, specifically in this region due to snowmelt and heavy spring rainfall. However, irregular weather patterns caused abnormal barometric pressure, with warm air from the south colliding with cold air from the north, where an estimated 165 billion tons of water fell into the Ohio and Mississippi River basins. These images here show the accumulated precipitation throughout the month of January in 1937, with the image on the left showing the percentage of the mean, where along the Ohio River you could see up to 750 times the mean, with the mean period ranging from 1981 to 2010, where on the right it shows the total accumulated precipitation in inches, with the center showing up to 30 inches. There had been lots of floods previous to this flood, but this flood lasted several weeks. There had been consistent flooding in the region that typically was not incredibly impactful, but because of how common it was, there were already things put in place to help prevent severe impacts from flooding. However, there had also been 3 extreme floods recorded before the 1937 flood, including a large flood in 1936, just before the 1937 flood, that primarily impacted parts of Pennsylvania. There are still floods in this region, with a notable flood in 2011. This 1937 flood was special because not only did it have the highest gauge height of 80 feet, but it also had the longest impact of lasting 19 days. This is specifically for Cincinnati, where there was the highest height recorded. The flood impacted the entire river. The Ohio River watershed is between 204,000 to 205,000 square miles and covers 15 states. The river itself is 981 miles long. It impacted the entire river from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Cairo, Illinois, with Cairo, Illinois being at the bottom of the river and still seeing a 59.5-foot peak, and the frequency of floods may continue still to increase through continued urbanization along the river and increasing pollution.
Okay, now let's talk about some different cities that were affected. Let's begin by talking about Southville, Ohio. This is just east of Portsmouth along the Ohio River, and during this flood, the river rose to a record of 74 feet, submerging neighborhoods, storefronts, and rail lines. Homes and small factories sat in water for days, leaving many people without work, home, food, shelter, you name it. Residents had to evacuate the town by railboat or rail when possible, and others sheltered on the upper floors of larger buildings such as churches. As a result of this tragedy, the region built flood walls and pumping stations, reshaping how towns developed near the river and, more importantly, small towns. Next up is Covington, Northern Kentucky, which is on the south bank opposite of Cincinnati, which we will talk about in a second. When the river crested, Covington's low-lying business district flooded completely, submerging the bridge that you can see below in this photo. Trolley lines and roads vanished beneath several feet of water, and basements filled, ruining inventory in storefronts and warehouses. Thousands were displaced, causing many different people to have changed school districts and people to find new jobs. Emergency crews ferried people and supplies by boat, but this disaster still completely destroyed the northern side of Kentucky. Next up, let's talk about the big city, which is Cincinnati, Ohio, in this occasion. This kind of sits in the heart of the tri-state flood story, as the river here reached nearly 80 feet, which submerged about a sixth of the entirety of the city of Cincinnati. As a result of this, everything shut down. Transit shut down, utilities failed in several districts, and all the factories along Mill Creek and the riverfront closed. In addition to this, fires and fuel spills flooded in industrial areas and added danger for rescue crews. This also cost almost tens of thousands of people their jobs and many, many people their lives. So, altogether, all of these cities show how big of a tragedy and how big of a problem the Ohio River flood was. Driving long term investments in flood walls, pumps, and coordinated emergency planning that still protect this region and others today. And then here's our image references. And then here's our information references. Thank you.